I am Valerie, 33 years old, and a senior forensic accountant here in Atlanta. I track down hidden assets and dismantle complex corporate frauds for a living. I am trained to look at cold facts, remove all irrational emotion, and build an airtight case against guilty parties. But nothing prepared me for the financial and emotional crime that was unfolding right inside my own master bathroom. My husband of 7 years, Marcus, was taking a hot shower. I was putting away his clean laundry when his phone screen lit up on the dual vanity counter. The glowing notification displayed a text message that would break the spirit of most women. It read, "Last night meant everything to me. I cannot wait until we do not have to hide anymore." I stood holding his tailored shirts. I did not scream or dissolve into a puddle of desperate tears. My professional instincts kicked in immediately. I picked up his phone and typed a calculating reply. "Come over right now. She is gone." I hit send, deleted the notification, and waited in the silence. Before I reveal the identity of the person who walked through my front door, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stay completely calm while your entire world shattered into pieces around you. 30 minutes later, the heavy brass knocker on my front door echoed through our hallway. I took a deep, steadying breath. I smoothed down my blouse, preparing to face whichever naive woman my husband had been secretly seeing behind my back. I unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the heavy door open. The air was violently punched out of my lungs. I instantly wished I had never sent that text message. Standing on my front porch was not a stranger. Wearing my husband's faded gray college sweatshirt, the exact same sweatshirt Marcus claimed he had lost at the gym months ago, was Jasmine, my 28-year-old sister, the undisputed golden child of our family. The woman who played the fragile, helpless victim in every single scenario since we were children. She stood there with a smug, victorious smile on her perfectly contoured face. But that smile dropped the absolute second she saw me standing there instead of Marcus. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving her looking pale and terrified. She took a stumbling step backward, clutching the oversized sleeves of my husband's sweatshirt, as if it could somehow protect her from my gaze. Before either of us could speak a single word, the sound of heavy, frantic footsteps pounded down the oak staircase behind me. Marcus rushed into the brightly lit foyer. He was wearing nothing but a damp white towel secured hastily around his waist, warm water still dripping from his chest onto the polished hardwood floor. He froze instantly when he saw the two of us facing each other across the threshold. But the most telling and heartbreaking part of this entire nightmare was not his initial shock. It was his immediate instinctual reaction. Instead of dropping to his knees, instead of begging for my forgiveness, or frantically trying to explain away the ultimate betrayal, Marcus moved swiftly past me. He stepped right in front of Jasmine, physically shielding her small frame from me, as if I were a dangerous threat, as if I were the villain in this twisted, disgusting scenario. He raised his chin, his arrogant and entitled demeanor returning in an instant. He looked at me with cold, unapologetic eyes, completely abandoning the vows we had taken 7 years prior. The man I had loved, the man I had supported through every financial struggle, was standing on our front porch, acting as the valiant protector for the woman who had invaded our marriage. The silence between the three of us stretched out thick and suffocating, filled with the devastating reality that my own flesh and blood had conspired to destroy the foundation of my life. "Look at yourself, Valerie," Marcus shouted, his voice echoing loudly in the quiet suburban neighborhood. "You work 70 hours a week, hunting down tax evaders and crunching numbers. You are cold. You are a machine. You never have time for me or my needs. Jasmine makes me feel like a real man. She gives me the warmth and affection you are completely incapable of providing." The sheer audacity of his words hung in the humid Georgia air. This man, a vice president of wealth management, whose entire career was built upon the networking connections and financial stability I had provided while he was struggling, was standing on my property defending his affair with my sister. My analytical mind processed his outburst with absolute clarity. He wanted a reaction. He wanted me to lose control so he and Jasmine could play the victims for our parents. I refused to give them that satisfaction. I did not yell. I simply turned around, walked to the utility closet, and grabbed black, heavy-duty trash bags. I marched upstairs and began emptying his closets. The custom suits I had bought him, the expensive silk ties, the Italian leather shoes. I shoved everything into the plastic bags with mechanical efficiency. I hauled 4 massive bags downstairs and dragged them past Marcus and Jasmine, who were still standing frozen on the porch. I tossed the bags onto the front lawn. They hit the grass with a heavy thud. "Get off my property," I stated, my voice as cold as ice. "And take your trash with you." I grabbed the edge of the heavy oak door and slammed it shut in their faces. I engaged the deadbolt. As the metal lock clicked, I heard Jasmine's voice piercing through the thick wood. "Kicking him out will not change anything, Valerie." She shouted, her tone dripping with triumph. "Mom already knows about us. She has known for months. And guess what? I am pregnant with his baby." The sun barely crests the horizon when the sharp click of the front door deadbolt echoes through the silent house. I am sitting at the kitchen island staring at a cold cup of coffee, still wearing the clothes from the night before. I did not sleep a single minute. My mind has been categorizing the betrayal, filing away every lie Marcus ever told me into neat digital folders in my brain. The heavy oak door swings open and my parents, Vivian and Jerome, stride into the brightly lit foyer. They do not look like parents rushing to comfort their heartbroken daughter. My mother is wearing her pristine Sunday church suit, her pearls perfectly aligned, her expression set in stone. My father follows closely behind, adjusting his expensive silk tie with nervous energy. They used the emergency key I gave them years ago for contingencies. Neither of them asks how I am holding up. Neither of them offers a hug or a shoulder to cry on. My mother walks directly into the kitchen, places her designer handbag on the marble counter, and looks at me with a mixture of sheer annoyance and stern authority. "Sit down, Valerie," she commands, her voice completely devoid of any maternal warmth. "We need you to be rational about this situation. We cannot have you acting out of emotion and destroying everything we have worked so hard to build." I remain standing, crossing my arms tightly over my chest. The absolute audacity of her opening statement is staggering. My husband impregnated my younger sister, yet I am the one being instructed to remain rational. I stare at the two people who are supposed to protect me, suddenly realizing they have come here to protect the very person who destroyed my marriage. My father clears his throat, refusing to meet my direct gaze. He paces the length of the kitchen, running a hand over his graying hair. "You have to understand the bigger picture here, Valerie." He begins, his voice dropping to a low, businesslike tone. "My logistics firm is bleeding cash. We are weeks away from declaring total bankruptcy. We will lose the house, the cars, our entire standing in the Atlanta community. Everything." I watch him closely, waiting for the connection to my ruined marriage. He finally stops pacing and looks at me. "Bradley's family trust is prepared to inject $5 million into my company by the end of the month. It is a lifeline that will save our entire legacy." My breath catches in my throat as the pieces fall into place. Bradley is Jasmine's husband, the heir to one of the wealthiest real estate empires in the state. My mother steps forward, her eyes flashing with a desperate, ruthless energy. "If Bradley finds out that Jasmine has been sleeping with her own brother-in-law, he will file for divorce before the ink is dry on that investment contract," Vivian snaps, slapping her hand against the marble countertop for emphasis. "The scandal would be catastrophic. His family would withdraw the $5 million immediately, and we would be utterly ruined." I stare at them in pure disbelief. "You want me to cover up my husband's affair to save your business?" I ask, my voice deceptively calm. "You want me to pretend my sister is not carrying my husband's child so you can secure a real estate payout?" My mother does not even flinch. "You are strong, Valerie. You have always been the independent one. You have a lucrative career as a forensic accountant. You do not need a man to survive. Jasmine is fragile. She needs the stability Bradley provides." We are asking you to do the right thing for this family. File for a quiet, no-fault divorce. Cite irreconcilable differences. Tell everyone you and Marcus simply grew apart. Let Jasmine handle her pregnancy privately and let her keep Marcus on the side, if that is what it takes to keep her marriage to Bradley intact. The cruelty of her demand is suffocating. They are explicitly asking me to fall on my sword, to swallow my dignity and my pain, just to maintain the flawless high society facade of the golden child. They want me to silently hand over my husband so they can cash a $5 million check. I look at the two strangers standing in my kitchen. The familial bond I thought we shared evaporates into thin air, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. Absolutely not, I state firmly. I will not lie to protect a cheating husband and a manipulative sister. I am filing for divorce on the grounds of adultery, and I will name Jasmine directly in the paperwork. My father's face contorts with rage. He points a trembling finger at me. If you ruin this family's reputation, you are dead to us. Do you hear me? You will be entirely cut off. They turn and storm out of the house, the front door slamming shut behind them with a deafening crash. I am completely alone. The threat of excommunication means nothing to me now. I walk straight to my home office and open my laptop. I need a ruthless divorce attorney, and I need to transfer my substantial personal savings into a secure individual account before Marcus tries any desperate maneuvers. I log into our joint banking portal, navigating to the savings account, where I have meticulously deposited the bulk of my six-figure salary over the past 5 years. I type in the transfer amount, double-check the routing numbers, and hit enter. The screen freezes for a fraction of a second before a bright red error message flashes across the display. Insufficient funds. I pick up my cell phone and immediately dial the direct line for Richard, the private wealth manager at my primary bank. My heart beats a steady, controlled rhythm against my ribs. I do not panic. I gather data. Panic is for people who do not understand how money moves. The phone rings twice before Richard answers. I bypass the pleasantries and demand an immediate line-by-line explanation for the zero balance on my primary savings account. Richard pauses, his voice tight with professional discomfort. He clears his throat and tells me that my husband came into the main branch exactly 1 hour ago. Marcus presented a comprehensive legally binding power of attorney document, complete with my notarized signature, granting him immediate and unrestricted access to all of our liquid assets. Based on that document, Marcus drained the entire $250,000 in a single wire transfer. I grip the edge of my heavy mahogany desk, my knuckles turning white. I tell Richard the signature is a blatant forgery. I explain that I have never signed a power of attorney in my life, let alone authorized my husband to empty my life savings. I demand an immediate reversal of the wire transfer. Richard sighs heavily, the sound of a man caught in a legal nightmare. He explains that because the document was legally notarized by a licensed professional in the state of Georgia, the bank's hands are officially tied. They must honor the document until I file a formal police report and open a lengthy fraud investigation. But Marcus did not stop at stealing $250,000 in cash. Richard hesitantly adds that Marcus also filed an emergency freeze on our marital home. He presented fabricated documents claiming we are entering highly contested divorce proceedings and that I am a flight risk who might attempt to sell the property out from under him to hide the profits. The freeze means I cannot take out a line of credit against my own equity. I cannot refinance the mortgage. I cannot leverage my own house to hire decent legal counsel. Marcus has effectively locked me out of my own life, leaving me with nothing but the cash currently sitting in my physical wallet. He timed this perfectly, executing the transfer the very second my parents left my house, ensuring I would be trapped without resources. I hang up the phone and stare blindly at my dual monitor setup. The sheer scale of his premeditated financial attack is breathtaking. As I sit there processing the ambush, my cell phone vibrates against the polished wood of my desk. The screen illuminates with a new text message from Marcus. I open it, bracing myself for whatever pathetic justification he plans to offer for stealing my money. Instead, it is a pure, unadulterated taunt. Good luck paying the mortgage this month, Ice Queen. The message reads, "The family chose me over you. You have absolutely nothing left. Do not make this harder than it has to be." I read the cruel words 3 times, letting the venom sink in. Marcus is not a criminal mastermind. He is a greedy, arrogant opportunist who relies entirely on his charm, his tailored suits, and my past financial support to navigate his wealthy world. He assumes this aggressive, underhanded move will completely break my spirit. He expects me to dissolve into tears, to panic at the prospect of losing my pristine suburban home, and to crawl back to my parents begging for a loan. He genuinely believes that by stripping away my financial safety net, he will force me to become the sacrificial lamb they all desperately need right now. He expects me to quietly file the no-fault divorce paperwork, swallow my pride, and let Jasmine play the happy, wealthy mother to his child, while Bradley remains completely oblivious to the affair. My family thinks I am backed into a corner with zero leverage. They think money is the ultimate weapon because it is the only language they truly understand and respect. They assume financial desperation will breed immediate submission. But they have made a catastrophic miscalculation. They are treating me like a typical helpless, scorned wife, completely forgetting who they are actually dealing with. Marcus forgot one crucial, undeniable detail in his rush to ruin my life. He just committed brazen federal wire fraud and stole $250,000 from a senior forensic accountant. I wipe a single stray tear from my cheek, letting the cold, calculating logic of my profession wash over my burning anger. I crack my knuckles, close the useless banking portal, and boot up my private encrypted workstation. I launch the military-grade financial tracing software I use every single day to hunt down international tax evaders and corporate embezzlers. Marcus thinks a forged signature and a quick bank transfer will erase his tracks, but money never simply vanishes into thin air. It always leaves a digital footprint, a glowing trail of electronic breadcrumbs that I am highly trained to follow. I bypass the standard consumer banking interfaces and dive straight into the raw routing data, tracing the exact sequence of the wire transfer Richard authorized an hour ago. I run the clearinghouse numbers through my custom algorithms, watching the progress bar load as my software strips away the layers of banking privacy screens. Marcus is arrogant, but he is not nearly sophisticated enough to build an invisible financial labyrinth to hide my money. The software pings sharply with a direct match. I lean forward, my eyes scanning the terminal output rapidly. The $250,000 did not land in any of Marcus's personal checking accounts. It did not go to a domestic bank or a standard wealth management portfolio. The IP address and routing destination point directly to a highly shielded offshore shell company. I stare at the screen as the registered name of the entity slowly decodes before my eyes. It is a mysterious limited liability company operating completely in the shadows, and it is about to blow this entire family secret wide open. I did not call in sick to my firm that morning. I simply ignored my ringing cell phone, muted my incoming email notifications, and brewed a massive pot of pitch-black coffee. I sat down at my formal dining room table, the exact same table where Marcus and I had eaten dinner for the last 7 years, and turned the space into a digital war room. My laptop screen cast a harsh blue glow across the dark wood as my fingers flew across the keyboard. Marcus truly thought he was clever by routing my stolen $250,000 through a series of encrypted servers. He assumed a few digital hurdles would deter a heartbroken wife. But encryption is nothing more than a digital lock, and I have spent my entire professional career building the master keys. I ran a highly specialized localized decryption algorithm, cross-referencing the hidden routing digits against global banking registries. It took 4 hours of relentless, uninterrupted coding to strip away the thick proxy layers he had paid someone to set up. When the final firewall collapsed, the true destination of my life savings materialized on the screen in stark white text. The stolen funds had been deposited into a private limited liability company incorporated in the Cayman Islands. The corporate entity was registered under the name Golden Orchid Holdings. It was a textbook shell company structure, the exact kind of invisible corporate facade that wealthy criminals use to launder illicit funds dodge international taxes, and hide assets from investigators. But setting up an offshore company requires a solid paper trail. It requires formal incorporation documents, a designated registered agent, and a physical signature filed with the local financial authority. I cracked my neck, took another burning sip of bitter coffee, and initiated a deep web crawl to pull the original incorporation charter for Golden Orchid Holdings. I was not just looking for my stolen money anymore. I was hunting the architect of this entire scheme. The digital charter downloaded as a heavily redacted secure PDF file. I quickly ran it through a forensic imaging filter to strip away the blacked-out sections, revealing the raw, unedited text underneath. My eyes scanned the dense legal jargon, searching for the managing director or the registered agent on file. When I reached the bottom of the final page, my breath hitched painfully in my chest. Staring back at me in looping familiar blue ink was a signature I had known since childhood. It was Jasmine. My fragile, helpless, chronically unemployed younger sister was legally listed as the sole proprietor and managing director of an offshore shell company. She had actively conspired with my husband to steal my life savings to fund their sick, twisted new life together. A fresh, violent wave of disgust washed over me, but I shoved the raw emotion down into a tight, dark box in my mind. Emotion makes you sloppy, and I needed to be surgically precise. I hacked directly into the raw ledger history of Golden Orchid Holdings to see exactly when the fraudulent account had been opened. The creation date was logged as exactly 24 months ago. This affair and this financial deception had been going on for 2 solid years, right under my nose. But as the transaction history populated on my screen line by staggering line, my focus abruptly shifted away from my stolen $250,000. My deposit was just a tiny, insignificant drop in a massive overflowing bucket. The digital ledger showed continuous automated wire transfers flooding into the offshore account on the first of every single month. $50,000 here, $120,000 there. The balances compounded rapidly and aggressively. Golden Orchid Holdings was currently sitting on a liquid cash reserve of over $3 million. I stared at the staggering figure, my forensic instincts screaming that something was fundamentally wrong with this picture. Marcus made a lucrative corporate salary, but he absolutely did not have millions in disposable cash to quietly siphon away. He was a mid-level vice president who relied heavily on his annual performance bonuses and my steady six-figure income to fund his luxury car leases and his expensive country club memberships. The massive amounts of money flooding into Jasmine's offshore account were completely unaccounted for in his personal financial footprint. I initiated a complex reverse trace on the largest, most consistent incoming deposits to find the true source. The algorithm tracked the money back to its origin, bouncing through a maze of clearinghouses until it finally hit a solid domestic wall. The origin point was not a personal checking account or a standard investment portfolio. It was a massive legacy corporate trust fund, a trust fund registered to the most prominent historic real estate empire in Atlanta. It was Bradley's family empire. These were the exact highly guarded accounts that Marcus personally managed as their designated vice president of wealth. The horrifying truth hit me with the force of a speeding freight train. Marcus and Jasmine were not just having a sordid suburban affair behind my back. They were actively embezzling millions of dollars from Bradley's primary trust accounts and hiding the stolen wealth in Jasmine's offshore shell company. My parents were willing to completely sacrifice my marriage and my mental health to secure a $5 million investment from a man my sister was actively robbing blind. They were all standing blindly on a fragile house of cards, and I was holding the match. Just as I securely saved the damning ledgers to an encrypted external hard drive, a sharp, distinct scraping sound at the front of the house broke the heavy silence. I pushed my chair back, walked out of my home office, and stared down the long hallway. Slipping slowly underneath the crack of my heavy oak front door was an elegant, thick gold leaf envelope. I slid my chair back and walked down the hallway, my bare feet silent on the hardwood. I bend down and pick up the thick envelope. It carries the unmistakable weight of serious generational money. The front is embossed with the heavy gold crest of Bradley's Family Trust, a prestigious emblem recognized throughout Atlanta's high society as a symbol of immense power. I tear through the thick paper and pull out a crisp ivory invitation card. It is a formal request for my presence at their annual charity gala this coming Saturday night at the Botanical Gardens. A small piece of personalized stationery flutters to the floor. I retrieve it and recognize Bradley's sharp, precise handwriting. Valerie Marcus mentioned that the two of you are currently taking a break, but you are still family to us. Please come. We are announcing a massive real estate partnership with Marcus and Jasmine, and we want you there to celebrate. I read the short note twice, the sheer audacity of it sending a cold shock through my system. The absolute gall of my husband is staggering. He has already started spinning a false narrative to his wealthy social circle, branding our impending divorce as a simple mutual break while securing his elevated position at Bradley's side. Bradley clearly has zero idea that the new business partners he is so eager to celebrate are the exact same people betraying him in the worst ways possible. Marcus and Jasmine are not just carrying on a twisted affair behind closed doors. They are parading it right in front of Bradley under the guise of a lucrative family business venture, smiling to his face while plunging a knife into his back. I walk slowly back to my home office, the ivory invitation clutched tightly in my hand. I sit down and stare at the glowing monitors, the digital ledgers of Golden Orchid Holdings still completely exposed on my screen. The pieces of their grand, sickening puzzle snap together with brutal, terrifying clarity. This is not just about a messy suburban affair or stealing my personal savings to fund a quick romantic getaway. This is a highly calculated, multi-million-dollar money laundering operation, operating at the highest levels of corporate finance. Marcus is using his position as Vice President of Wealth to systematically bleed Bradley's primary trust accounts, dry manipulating the ledgers and funneling the stolen capital directly into Jasmine's offshore shell company. Now they are taking those exact same stolen funds and feeding them right back into Bradley's own real estate empire. They are buying into this massive new commercial partnership using Bradley's own stolen money as their buy-in capital. It is an incredibly brazen cycle of fraud. By injecting the offshore cash into a legitimate, high-profile domestic real estate development, Marcus and Jasmine are effectively scrubbing the dirty money clean. Once those stolen funds are officially tied up in commercial property and partnership equity, they become virtually untouchable. Shielded by corporate privacy laws and complex tax structures, they will reap the massive dividends of the legitimate investment, while Bradley remains entirely ignorant of the fact that he essentially funded his own financial betrayal. And my parents, desperate to save their failing logistics firm from total bankruptcy, are completely complicit in the crime. They are willing to sacrifice my marriage and my entire future to ensure this fraudulent partnership goes through because they desperately need the $5 million payout Bradley promised them. They are all using each other, building a fragile empire on a foundation of adultery, theft, and staggering lies. Marcus thought he could completely neutralize me by draining my bank account and freezing my home equity. He thought making me financially destitute would force me to retreat into the shadows and stay quiet, while they executed their final triumphant move this Saturday. He drastically underestimated my tolerance for risk and my absolute refusal to be a victim in his fraudulent game. I reach for my cell phone and navigate to the digital RSVP link printed at the bottom of the elegant invitation. I select yes, confirming my attendance for a single guest. I am going to that gala, and I am going to burn their entire criminal operation to the ground in front of everyone they know. But presenting my digital breadcrumbs to a man like Bradley will not be enough to trigger a collapse. Marcus is a smooth, practiced talker. He will claim my software trace is fabricated, a desperate, pathetic attempt by a bitter, jealous wife to ruin his flawless professional reputation. To completely destroy him and hand a watertight, undeniable case over to the Securities and Exchange Commission, I need physical, tangible evidence. I need the original wire transfer authorizations bearing his actual signature, the internal bank memos he tried to delete, and the hard copy audit logs that prove Marcus deliberately bypassed his firm's strict security protocols to authorize those offshore transfers. I need the highly classified documents he keeps locked away in his corporate office downtown. My mind races calculating the exact logistics of infiltrating a secure high-rise building when my cell phone vibrates violently against the surface of my desk. The caller ID flashes with the name of my managing partner, David. I answer the call immediately, bracing for a routine morning check-in regarding my active client files. Instead, David's voice comes through the speaker tight with barely suppressed rage and a sharp edge of panic. He demands to know exactly where I am and instructs me to get down to the downtown office immediately. Someone has just filed a massive anonymous formal complaint against my professional forensic license, and my entire career is officially on the line. I navigate the morning traffic with cold precision. When I stride into the glass-walled conference room at my firm, David avoids my eyes. He sits rigidly next to Brenda, our head of human resources. David and my father, Jerome, play golf at the Buckhead Country Club every single Sunday. The good old boys network is already tightening its noose. Brenda slides a thick manila folder across the polished glass table. It is not just an anonymous complaint about my license. It is a highly detailed, utterly fabricated psychological evaluation. Marcus submitted it directly to the firm's executive board this morning. The document stamped with the letterhead of a prominent high society psychiatrist my mother regularly lunches with paints a disturbing picture. It claims I am currently suffering from acute severe paranoia and experiencing aggressive delusions regarding financial conspiracies. Worse, the report explicitly states I have been threatening physical violence against my sister and my husband. David finally looks at me, his expression a mix of pity and corporate self-preservation. He explains that Marcus called him personally, expressing deep, tearful concern for my mental stability. Marcus spun a tale of a wife having a complete psychotic break, imagining offshore bank accounts and embezzled millions, warning David that I might use the firm's resources to execute a personal vendetta. My father followed up with a call of his own, confirming the narrative, assuring David that the family was handling my tragic mental decline privately, but felt a moral duty to warn my employers. They are weaponizing my profession against me. They know that if I take my evidence of the offshore shell company to the authorities now, I will be immediately dismissed as a bitter, delusional woman suffering from a documented mental break. They are systematically destroying my credibility before I can even open my mouth. Brenda clears her throat, adopting that sterile, overly sympathetic tone designed entirely for corporate liability. She explains that because my role as a senior forensic accountant grants me unrestricted access to highly sensitive classified financial data for our global clients, the firm simply cannot take any risks. The board has voted unanimously. Effective immediately, I am placed on mandatory unpaid administrative leave, pending a comprehensive internal investigation. I look at David, watching the subtle shift in his posture. My father's influence in the Atlanta business community is vast and unforgiving. Jerome brings millions of dollars in corporate accounts to this firm every fiscal year. David is not going to risk alienating one of his biggest rainmakers to protect an employee who has just been officially branded as mentally unstable. The strategy is brilliantly wicked. My family knows exactly how much power my forensic skills hold. By stripping away my professional title, my firm's backing, and my paycheck, they are isolating me on an island of illegitimacy. If I try to blow the whistle on the Golden Orchid Holdings embezzlement scheme, Bradley will not listen. The SEC will not listen. The police will see a desperate, unhinged woman making wild accusations about her wealthy, upstanding family. They are suffocating my voice under a mountain of carefully engineered corporate protocol. I am being locked out of the very system I use to expose criminals. They expect this final blow to completely break my spirit, to leave me begging for their financial mercy. Without my salary, without my savings, and without access to my home equity, I am a ghost in the financial system. Jerome and Marcus have meticulously built an invisible cage around me using their country club handshakes and old money influence to ensure I cannot hire a decent lawyer to fight back. Brenda gently asks for my security badge and my company-issued laptop. I do not scream. I do not cry. I do not offer a single word of emotional defense. Defending myself against a fabricated psychological diagnosis only makes me look exactly as unhinged as they claim I am. I stand up with terrifying calm, unclasp the lanyard from my neck, and set my badge on the glass table. I retrieve my personal hard drive from my bag, leaving the laptop behind. I look David dead in the eye, offering a cool, polite nod, and walk out of the conference room with my head held high. I maintain my absolute composure as the security guard escorts me into the elevator and out through the polished brass revolving doors of the lobby. The mid-morning sun hits my face as I step onto the busy downtown sidewalk. I pull my cell phone from my pocket to call a rideshare, but a bright red banking notification dominates the screen. It is an alert from the joint credit card account Marcus supposedly froze this morning. The freeze apparently only applies to my specific cardholder number. The notification details a freshly authorized, cleared transaction. Jasmine just dropped $15,000 at an exclusive invite-only luxury bridal boutique. She is not just stealing my husband and my money. She is already buying a wedding dress to replace me, funding her fairy tale ending with the very cash they drained from my accounts. The audacity is no longer just insulting. It is the exact motivation I need to completely destroy them. I slide into the driver's seat of my car, the leather hot against my back, and pull up the exact address of the boutique from the credit card alert. It is located in the most exclusive shopping district in Buckhead, a place where appointments are strictly mandatory and the champagne flows freely. I do not have an appointment, but I have a surplus of adrenaline and zero remaining patience. I bypass the valet parallel park with aggressive precision and push through the heavy glass doors of the boutique. The interior is a sea of white tulle, crushed silk, and sparkling crystal chandeliers. A sales associate steps forward to intercept me, offering a polite but strained smile, asking for my name. I ignore her entirely, my eyes scanning the expansive showroom. Toward the back, elevated on a plush, circular pedestal, stands my younger sister. Jasmine is twirling slowly in front of a massive floor-to-ceiling mirror. She is draped in a custom ivory maternity evening gown, the fabric draped expertly to highlight the small, undeniable curve of her stomach. She looks radiant, playing the part of the glowing mother-to-be with sickening perfection. Sitting on a velvet settee just a few feet away is our mother Vivian. She holds a crystal flute of champagne, nodding approvingly at the alterations while chatting amiably with the lead seamstress. The domestic tranquility of the scene is absolutely repulsive. They are actively celebrating the destruction of my life with expensive bubbly and custom tailoring. I walk straight toward the viewing area, my heels clicking sharply against the polished marble floor. The sound cuts through the soft classical music playing over the sound system. Vivian turns her head, her smile freezing instantly as she registers my presence. My mother places her champagne flute on the side table with a sharp clink. The color drains from her face, quickly replaced by a flush of sheer indignation. "What on earth are you doing here?" "Valerie," Vivian demands, her voice dropping to a harsh, hushed tone to avoid causing a public scene. "This is a private fitting. You need to turn around and leave right now before I have the manager call security." I stop at the edge of the viewing platform, crossing my arms over my chest. "I am not leaving," I state evenly, my voice projecting clearly across the quiet room. "I just wanted to see exactly what $15,000 of stolen money looks like on my sister." Jasmine stops twirling. The smug, glowing facade vanishes, replaced by a flash of genuine panic before she quickly catches herself. She steps down from the pedestal, the heavy silk of her gown rustling softly, and walks right up to me. She invades my personal space, her perfume suffocatingly sweet. The sales associate and the seamstress hastily retreat to the front of the store, sensing the impending explosion. Jasmine leans in close, her voice a venomous whisper meant only for my ears. "You lost Val," she hisses, a vicious smile playing on her lips. "Marcus is announcing our baby at Bradley's gala this Saturday. He is going to introduce me as his new partner in life and in business. Mom and Dad are backing me completely because I am giving them the grandchild you never could, and I am saving their company in the process. Why do you persist in humiliating yourself? Marcus drained your accounts. He got you suspended from your precious firm. He froze your house. You have zero leverage. Just go back to your empty house and accept reality." Her words are deliberately designed to gut me, to strike at my deepest insecurities and reinforce the narrative that I am completely alone. Vivian stands up from the settee, straightening her immaculate suit. "Listen to your sister, Valerie," she adds coldly. "You are making a fool of yourself. We made the necessary choice to preserve this family's legacy. Go home and let us handle this transition peacefully." They look at me with absolute certainty, completely convinced that their coordinated attack has successfully broken my spirit. I do not break eye contact with my sister. I do not shout and I do not cry. I turn on my heel and walk calmly toward a display mannequin near the register, draped in a stunning blood-red evening gown. It is bold, aggressive, and exactly the kind of statement piece I need for Bradley's upcoming gala. I pull the dress from the display, hand it to the trembling manager behind the counter, and pull a thick stack of emergency cash from my bag. "I will take this," I say clearly. As the manager rings up the purchase, my gaze falls to the small silver tray on the counter. Resting right on top is the sleek, heavy metal of a black Centurion credit card. It is not Marcus's personal card, and it certainly does not belong to Jasmine. I recognize the corporate engraving immediately. I look back at Jasmine, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across my face. "Enjoy Bradley's corporate credit line while you still can, Jasmine," I say, my voice ringing out with crystal clarity. "I hear his accounting department is incredibly strict about wire fraud and unauthorized luxury purchases these days." Jasmine's face goes completely pale. The vicious smugness evaporates, replaced by stark, undisguised terror as she realizes I know exactly whose money she is actually spending. I pick up my garment bag and walk out of the boutique, leaving them standing in stunned, suffocating silence. The drive back to the suburbs is a blur of calculated planning. My entire professional life has trained me for this exact scenario, teaching me how to dismantle liars and thieves piece by piece. Marcus might have successfully blocked my digital access to his firm, but he left a massive physical vulnerability right under my own roof. To access his locked corporate office and retrieve those offshore audit logs, I need his high-level executive keycard. And then I remember a crucial detail Marcus thought I had entirely forgotten. He has an old, battered canvas gym bag shoved in the darkest corner of our attic, behind boxes of holiday decorations. The exact place he hides his master set of spare corporate keys. The drive back to our sprawling suburban estate is a blur of adrenaline and calculated focus. I pull into the empty driveway, bypass the main living areas, and head straight for the upstairs hallway. I pull the cord for the attic access stairs, the metal joints shrieking in the quiet house. A wave of trapped, suffocating heat hits me the second my head clears the opening, but I do not hesitate. I climb up into the dusty, dimly lit space, ignoring the oppressive temperature. I navigate past the towering stacks of seasonal decorations, the artificial Christmas trees, and the carefully labeled boxes of winter clothing. Deep in the furthest, darkest corner, shoved behind a crate of fragile ornaments, sits his old collegiate duffel bag. The faded canvas is covered in a thick layer of dust. I drag it out into the light of the single bare bulb hanging from the rafters and rip the zipper open. I expect to find a jumble of plastic keycards and brass office keys. Instead, the main compartment is entirely empty. My heart sinks for a fraction of a second before my fingers brush against the thick nylon bottom. I feel a hard, unnatural lump concealed between the layers of fabric. I grab a pair of scissors from a nearby craft box and slash through the lining. A heavy object falls into my palm. It is not a plastic corporate keycard. It is a long, heavy silver key with a distinctly complex groove pattern and a 6-digit serial number stamped into the metal. My forensic accounting background kicks in instantly. I recognize the specific cut and the numerical formatting. This does not belong to a downtown office door. This is a high-security safety deposit box key issued exclusively by First Sterling Bank, the private wealth institution, where Bradley holds his primary trust accounts. Marcus is not just hiding corporate files. He is hiding physical contraband. I do not waste a single second. I scrub the dust from my hands, change into a pristine, tailored designer suit, and grab my marriage certificate from our home safe. I drive straight into the heart of the financial district, pulling up to the imposing marble facade of First Sterling Bank. The lobby is an intimidating expanse of polished stone and hushed, wealthy silence. I approach the private wealth management desk with the absolute confidence of a woman who belongs there. The vault manager, a sharply dressed man named Preston, offers a polite greeting. I place the silver key on the mahogany counter, followed by my driver license and my marriage certificate. I smile the warm, entitled smile of an Atlanta executive wife and explain that my husband Marcus is tied up in endless meetings and asked me to retrieve some urgent personal documents from his box. Preston types the serial number into his system, and I watch his practiced smile falter. He apologizes profusely, explaining that while Marcus is indeed the box owner, my specific name is not listed on the authorized access registry for this particular vault. He reaches for his phone to call Marcus for verbal authorization. I place my hand firmly over the receiver. My pulse is hammering against my ribs, but my voice is ice cold and authoritative. I quote the exact state banking bylaws regarding spousal joint assets and community property. I slide a printout of our shared checking account statement across the desk, pointing to the specific line item where the annual fee for this exact safety deposit box is automatically deducted from our joint funds. I remind Preston that calling Marcus to interrupt a multi-million-dollar real estate negotiation with Bradley will not just ruin the deal, but it will end Preston's career at this branch by the end of the day. The threat is veiled in a polite, breathless whisper, but the weight of Bradley's name does the heavy lifting. Preston swallows hard, looks at the joint financial statement, and decides his job is not worth arguing with a wealthy, angry spouse. He nods, slides his master key from his pocket, and gestures for me to follow him. We walk past the heavy steel bars of the main vault door into a sterile, climate-controlled corridor lined with thousands of metal compartments. Preston locates the corresponding box number, inserts his master key, and steps back. I slide the heavy silver key into the second lock and turn it. The mechanism clicks with a loud, satisfying snap. Preston pulls the long, rectangular metal lockbox from the wall, escorts me into a private, soundproof viewing room, and gently closes the heavy door behind him. I am completely alone in the silent room. My hands are remarkably steady as I flip the dual latches and lift the lid. The box is packed to the brim. Sitting right on top is a thick stack of manila folders containing heavily redacted property deeds. A quick glance confirms the signatures have been expertly forged, transferring ownership of Bradley's prime commercial lots into Jasmine's offshore shell company. Tucked beside the folders are 3 cheap, prepaid burner phones, the exact untraceable devices Marcus and Jasmine have been using to coordinate their massive embezzlement scheme without leaving a digital footprint on their primary carriers. But it is the item buried at the very bottom of the metal box that makes the blood freeze in my veins. Beneath the stolen deeds and the burner phones sits a thick, rigid envelope made of premium cardstock. It is sealed with a heavy wax stamp bearing the unmistakable, intertwined logo of the Atlanta Fertility Institute. I slide my fingernail under the edge of the thick wax seal, applying just enough pressure to pop it loose without fracturing the emblem itself. The flap gives way easily. I pull out a stack of crisp, watermarked medical documents. My professional forensic training has taught me to remain completely detached to look at raw data and complex variables without any emotional interference. But the bold black text printed across the top sheet shatters my clinical composure entirely. It is a highly detailed, officially certified DNA paternity report. I scan the patient information block. The mother is listed as Jasmine. The alleged father is listed as Bradley. My eyes dropped to the final indisputable conclusion printed at the very bottom of the page. Probability of paternity 99.99%. A wave of pure, unadulterated disgust washes over me. This is not a real medical record. This is a masterfully fabricated forgery, a counterfeit medical insurance policy designed to protect the ultimate sickening lie. Marcus and Jasmine know perfectly well that Bradley is not the biological father of the child she is currently carrying. Marcus is the father. But they also know that Bradley is an incredibly smart, perceptive man who might eventually question the timeline of the pregnancy or demand a quiet paternity test if the child bears zero physical resemblance to him. They anticipated his inevitable suspicion and manufactured the perfect preemptive defense. If Bradley ever dares to ask for proof, Jasmine will produce this exact document complete with the forged signature of a top-tier fertility specialist to silence him permanently. The sheer scale of their sociopathy is breathtaking. They are not just stealing Bradley's liquid assets. They are actively stealing his entire generational legacy. By tricking him into legally claiming Marcus's biological child as his own, they are permanently anchoring Jasmine and her baby to the primary family trust. Even if their sordid affair is eventually exposed years down the line, this child will already be legally recognized as a rightful heir to Bradley's massive real estate empire. Marcus is using his own unborn child as a Trojan horse to infiltrate and conquer a billionaire dynasty from the inside out. He gets to keep his mistress fund his luxurious lifestyle with stolen cash and watch his boss blindly raise and fund his offspring. It is a level of psychological warfare and financial manipulation so dark it makes my blood run cold. I place the fabricated paternity report gently to the side and turn my attention back to the metal lockbox. Beneath the space where the medical envelope rested sits another thick stack of documents, these bound tightly in a dark leather portfolio. I unfasten the metal clasp and flip open the heavy cover. It is a comprehensive real estate closing packet. I scan the property address printed on the master deed and immediately recognize the street. It is located deep within the most exclusive, heavily guarded gated community in the entire Buckhead district. I flip to the final settlement statement, my eyes zeroing in on the itemized financial breakdown. The purchase price is listed at a staggering $3.2 million. The transaction was executed as a complete cash buyout, completely bypassing the standard mortgage underwriting process that would require extensive background checks and personal financial disclosures. I look at the designated buyer on the title. It is not Marcus, and it is not Jasmine. The property is officially deeded to Golden Orchid Holdings. The massive puzzle is now completely solved. This is not just another random commercial investment designed to launder Bradley's stolen capital. This is Marcus and Jasmine's secret, fully funded love nest. They used the money Marcus embezzled from Bradley's primary accounts to purchase a palatial suburban mansion outright. They are actively building a spectacular new life together, decorating a multi-million-dollar estate with stolen wealth, while simultaneously plotting to leave both me and Bradley with absolutely nothing. Every single time Marcus told me he was working late at the corporate office, every time Jasmine claimed she was attending an evening charity board meeting, they were likely lounging in their sprawling, debt-free Buckhead mansion, drinking expensive champagne, and laughing at how easily they had fooled their spouses. They funded their entire illicit romance on Bradley's dime, buying the exact house where they planned to raise their child once they finalized the complete financial ruin of their current marriages. I do not allow the crushing weight of their betrayal to slow my hands for a single second. I pull my phone from my pocket and open a secure encrypted scanning application. I photograph every single page of the forged paternity test, capturing the fraudulent physician's signatures and the fake clinic letterhead in pristine high resolution. I move swiftly to the real estate portfolio, snapping crystal-clear images of the closing documents, the massive wire transfer receipts, the LLC ownership declarations, and Marcus's blatant signature on the bottom line. I document the burner phones, capturing their unique serial numbers and SIM card details to ensure they can be easily tracked by federal investigators. Working with meticulous forensic precision, I return every single item to the metal box exactly as I found it. I place the heavy leather portfolio at the very bottom, arrange the three burner phones in their original configuration, and carefully reseal the flap of the fertility clinic envelope, pressing the wax stamp back into its precise indentation so it appears entirely untouched. I close the lid of the metal box lock. The dual latches slide it back into the wall vault, and turn the heavy silver key. I walk out of First Sterling Bank and step into the blazing Atlanta afternoon. I do not call Marcus to scream at him. I do not call my spineless boss to beg for my job back. I open my phone contacts and scroll past the local authorities stopping on a specific number I have not dialed since graduate school. I press call and hold the phone to my ear, listening to it ring. I am handing this entire criminal conspiracy over to my old college roommate, a woman who is now a senior, notoriously ruthless prosecutor for the Securities and Exchange Commission. The neon sign of the roadside diner flickers against the damp asphalt, casting a sickly red glow through the rain-streaked window of my booth. We are 40 miles outside the city limits, far beyond the manicured reach of Buckhead and the prying eyes of my father's country club associates. The air inside smells of stale grease and burnt coffee, a sharp, grounding contrast to the sterile, perfumed corporate environments I have navigated all day. A bell chimes over the front door. Chloe slides into the cracked vinyl booth across from me. She has not changed much since our days sharing a cramped dorm room at Emory. She still wears the same razor-sharp expression, though her tailored charcoal suit now projects the immense federal authority she wields as a senior prosecutor for the Securities and Exchange Commission. She does not offer a warm hug or waste time on pleasantries. She takes one look at my rigid posture, signals the waitress for a black coffee, and demands to see exactly what I have found. I reach into my leather tote and extract the encrypted tablet. I input the 12-digit alphanumeric passcode and slide the sleek device across the scratched laminate table. The screen glows brightly between us, displaying the meticulous, irrefutable digital mosaic I have constructed over the past 48 hours. Chloe leans forward, her eyes darting across the high-resolution photographs I took inside the bank vault. I walk her through the entire labyrinth. She examines the forged signatures on the property deeds, cross-referencing them with the internal audit logs I pulled from Golden Orchid Holdings. I watch her trace the flow of capital with her index finger, tracking the exact sequence of unauthorized wire transfers Marcus initiated from Bradley's primary family trust. I point out the final transaction, a massive, unencumbered cash withdrawal that perfectly matches the $3.2 million purchase price of the secret Buckhead mansion. I then show her the counterfeit paternity test, explaining how Marcus and Jasmine manufactured a biological insurance policy to cement their stolen wealth into Bradley's generational lineage. Chloe remains completely silent for 10 straight minutes. The only sound in our corner of the diner is the rhythmic tapping of her manicured nail against the edge of the tablet. When she finally looks up, her eyes are wide with a mixture of professional awe and absolute disgust. She tells me the forensic accounting is absolutely flawless. Marcus was incredibly arrogant to believe he could mask a multi-million-dollar domestic embezzlement scheme behind a basic offshore shell company, but arrogant men usually leave the messiest trails. She confirms that the physical documents I photographed inside the vault provide the exact federal jurisdiction the SEC needs to initiate an immediate criminal sweep. The bank records alone are enough to indict Marcus on multiple counts of aggravated wire fraud and corporate embezzlement. He is looking at decades in a federal penitentiary. However, Chloe leans back against the booth and crosses her arms, outlining the single glaring complication in our path. Nailing Marcus is a mathematical certainty. Nailing Jasmine, on the other hand, requires a much more delicate legal maneuver. While Jasmine's name is loosely tied to the offshore accounts, Marcus deliberately structured the transactions to shield her from direct authorized liability. He took the primary operational risk. If the feds arrest Marcus tomorrow morning at his office, Jasmine will instantly play the victim. She will use the forged paternity test to run straight to Bradley, claiming Marcus acted entirely alone, and that she is simply a terrified, innocent mother trying to protect Bradley's unborn heir. To secure a watertight federal conspiracy charge against Jasmine, the SEC needs to prove intent. They need to catch them in an overt, undeniable act of claiming the stolen assets together. They need a public moment where Jasmine officially and voluntarily links herself to the fraudulent partnership and the stolen capital. I take a slow sip of my lukewarm coffee, a cold, calculated smile spreading across my face. I tell Chloe they are already planning that exact public declaration. This Saturday night, Bradley is hosting his annual High Society Charity Gala at the Botanical Gardens. Hundreds of Atlanta's most influential investors, politicians, and socialites will be in attendance. Bradley intends to use the spotlight to officially announce his massive new commercial real estate partnership with Marcus and Jasmine. He is going to proudly welcome them into his inner financial circle, entirely unaware that their buy-in capital is his own stolen money. Marcus and Jasmine will stand on that stage and publicly accept their fraudulent equity. That formal, recorded acceptance in front of a ballroom full of witnesses is the precise overt act of conspiracy the federal government requires to lock them both away. I reach back into my tote bag and pull out two heavy, solid-state hard drives. They contain the original, unredacted data, dumps the untraceable offshore routing numbers, and the definitive proof of my parents' complicity in the logistics contract. I place my hand firmly over the drives, refusing to release them just yet. I look Chloe dead in the eye and lay out my absolute non-negotiable terms. I will hand over the physical drives and testify as the primary forensic witness for the federal prosecution. I will give the SEC the keys to dismantle Marcus's entire operation, but they have to execute the takedown exactly my way. Chloe sighs, warning me that federal arrests are typically handled quietly, prioritizing minimized collateral damage over public spectacle. I shake my head, my grip tightening on the drives. There will be no quiet surrender. My family tried to destroy my professional license, freeze my assets, and lock me in a psychiatric ward to cover their theft. They wanted to humiliate me and force me into the shadows. They want a grand high society spectacle, and I'm going to give them one they will never forget. The federal raid does not happen tomorrow morning in a sterile office lobby. It happens this Saturday night at exactly 9 o'clock, right in the middle of the gala. The Sunday morning air is thick with the cloying scent of magnolias and expensive perfume as I ascend the stone steps of First Trinity Fellowship. This is not just a church. It is a historic high society institution where Atlanta's oldest money comes to see and be seen, a place where multi-million-dollar business deals are brokered in the vestibule before the opening hymn. My family has occupied the exact same front row pew for 3 generations. I slip through the heavy oak doors just as the organ music swells, bypassing the judgmental stares of the greeting committee, and take a seat near the middle of the sanctuary. I do not look for a friendly face, because I know there are none left for me here. My eyes lock onto the front row. Sitting in prime position is my father Jerome, looking exceptionally proud in his custom-tailored suit. Beside him sits Vivian, the undisputed matriarch of this congregation, her posture rigidly perfect. Next to her is Jasmine, playing the part of the demure, glowing mother, to be her hand resting delicately on her slightly rounded stomach. And seated right beside my sister, looking completely oblivious to the nest of vipers he has married into, is Bradley. He is smiling warmly at something Jerome is saying, completely hooked by the illusion of their perfect, wholesome family dynamic. Marcus is noticeably absent, likely nursing a hangover, or covering his tracks at the office, but his physical presence is not required for the ambush my parents have orchestrated. I sit quietly in my pew, my hands folded neatly in my lap, waiting for the weekly spectacle to begin. Pastor Miller steps up to the polished mahogany pulpit, adjusting his microphone with a practiced, solemn expression. He has been my father's closest confidant and weekly golf partner for over 20 years. He knows every dark secret this family harbors and has happily helped them bury the bodies in exchange for generous donations to his building fund. He begins his sermon with standard platitudes about family unity and the sanctity of the household, his deep, resonant voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. But a few minutes in his tone shifts. The generic spiritual guidance sharpens into something highly specific, deliberately pointed and deeply vicious. He begins to preach about the dangers of a hardened heart, specifically targeting women who fail to keep their homes and lose their minds to bitter jealousy. He speaks of the tragedy of a barren life, twisting the narrative to imply that those who cannot bear fruit often turn to malice, attacking the righteous out of pure, unadulterated spite. He quotes scriptures about the wicked trying to tear down the blessed, warning the congregation to protect their families from those who have lost their way to hysteria and resentment. The air in the sanctuary grows suffocatingly thick. The entire congregation knows exactly who he is talking about. Marcus and Vivian have clearly spent the last week seeding the country club and the church with the fabricated narrative of my mental breakdown and professional suspension. I can feel the collective weight of 300 pairs of eyes slowly turning toward my pew. The stares are a sickening mixture of pity, disgust, and morbid fascination. Whispers ripple through the congregation, a low, buzzing hum of judgment that completely drowns out the choir. I look straight past the turning heads and lock eyes with the front pew. Vivian has slightly turned her head over her shoulder to look back at me. She is not hiding her expression. A cold, victorious smirk stretches across her face. This is her masterpiece. She has weaponized our lifelong spiritual community against me, using the pulpit to publicly excommunicate me from their society and preemptively discredit anything I might say about Jasmine. She wants me to break, to run out of the sanctuary in tears, proving their manufactured story of my instability. I do not shed a single tear. I do not lower my head, and I do not break eye contact with my mother. I know something she does not. I know that her entire empire is scheduled for a federal demolition this coming Saturday at 9 o'clock. I sit in absolute terrifying stillness until the sermon concludes and the ushers begin passing the heavy brass collection plates down the aisles. As the plate reaches my row, I reach up to the lapel of my jacket. I unpin my solid gold, diamond-encrusted legacy sorority pin, the ultimate symbol of Vivian's lineage and my inherited place in this toxic society. I hold it over the brass plate and drop it. The heavy metal hits the bottom with a sharp, echoing clatter that makes the usher flinch. I stand up, smooth the fabric of my skirt, and step out into the center aisle. I walk out of the sanctuary with my head held high, my heels striking the marble floor with slow, deliberate precision. I push through the heavy wooden doors and step out into the blinding Sunday sunlight, breathing in the crisp morning air. Before I can even reach my car, the heavy church doors swing open behind me. Heavy, hurried footsteps crunch on the gravel path. I turn around. It is Bradley. He has left the front pew in the middle of the postlude. He looks breathless, deeply troubled, and entirely confused by the overt hostility of the sermon and the sheer harshness of the family he is about to join. "Valerie, wait." Bradley calls out, his heavy footsteps rapidly closing the distance between us on the crushed gravel of the church parking lot. I stop and turn slowly, letting him catch his breath. He looks entirely out of his element, a sharp contrast to the aggressive, ruthless businessman I know he is in the boardroom. Right now, he just looks like a confused, genuinely concerned man who has stumbled into a family drama he does not quite understand. "I do not mean to intrude," he begins, running a hand through his hair, "but what exactly was that back there? The pastor, your mother, the way everyone was looking at you. It felt incredibly hostile." I study his face. There is no malice in his eyes, only a deep, protective confusion. He truly believes he is marrying into a respectable, close-knit Southern family. "Marcus has been telling me you are going through a remarkably difficult time," Bradley continues, lowering his voice as if sharing a delicate medical secret. "He said the stress of your career suspension triggered a severe mental breakdown. He told me you have been acting erratically, isolating yourself, and making wild accusations against the family." Bradley takes a step closer, his tone softening with misplaced empathy. "Listen, Valerie. I know we do not know each other perfectly yet, but you are going to be my sister. If you need help, professional help, or just a quiet place to retreat and recover, I have resources. I can arrange a private facility where you can get some rest. Marcus and Jasmine have been worried sick about you. They have been carrying so much weight lately, trying to hold this family together while planning the wedding." Bradley shakes his head in admiration. "Honestly, I do not know how they do it. They have been working around the clock, pouring all their energy into structuring this massive new joint investment portfolio for my family trust. They want to ensure everything is perfectly aligned for the announcement at my gala this Saturday. They are building a legacy, Valerie. You do not need to fight them. Let them help you. I listened to his earnest protective speech, completely awestruck by the sheer depth of Marcus and Jasmine's manipulation. They have painted me as the hysterical, broken woman, perfectly setting the stage to invalidate any truth I might try to expose. I do not scream. I do not pull my phone from my purse to show him the photographs of the forged paternity test. I do not tell him about the $3.2 million mansion purchased entirely with his own stolen cash. If I blow the lid off this conspiracy right here in the church parking lot, Marcus will have time to run. He will liquidate the offshore accounts, shred the physical evidence, and flee before the SEC can build their snare. I need Bradley to remain completely in the dark just long enough to put Marcus and Jasmine on that stage on Saturday night. I let out a soft, measured sigh, looking up at Bradley with an expression of calm, professional serenity. I appreciate your concern, Bradley. I really do. I say, my voice steady and entirely devoid of the hysteria he was warned about. I know Marcus and Jasmine are working incredibly hard on your financial portfolio. They are very invested in your assets. But let me ask you a question strictly from one business professional to another. Bradley tilts his head, his protective demeanor faltering slightly at my sharp corporate tone. As a real estate tycoon, a man who built a billion-dollar empire from the ground up, do you ever actually audit the raw transaction logs of your family trust? I pause, letting the question hang in the crisp morning air before delivering the final calculated strike. Or do you just blindly read the curated executive summary sheets Marcus prints out and hands to you at the end of every quarter? I watch his eyes widen as the implication of my words registers. You know as well as I do that summary sheets are just stories, Bradley. I continue, my voice dropping to a cool, conspiratorial whisper. And Marcus is a fantastic storyteller. But raw data does not lie. Raw bank routing numbers do not care about family legacy. If I were preparing to hand over a massive equity partnership to my future brother-in-law, I would want to look at the raw data. The shift in Bradley is instantaneous. The concerned, empathetic future family man vanishes, instantly replaced by the ruthless, predatory apex investor who dominates the Atlanta commercial market. His jaw tightens, and a dark, heavy shadow falls across his features. His business instincts, honed by decades of cutthroat negotiations and corporate betrayals, flare to life. He stares at me, and I can practically see the mental gears grinding as he realizes he has not personally verified a single raw ledger in over 2 years. He has trusted Marcus, implicitly signing off on pristine spreadsheets and beautifully bound quarterly reports without ever demanding direct access to the source accounts. The seed of profound, terrifying paranoia has been successfully planted. I offer him a warm, reassuring smile, the kind of smile that gives nothing away. You have a very big week ahead of you, Bradley, I say, stepping back toward my car and unlocking the doors. I am so glad we had this little chat. I will see you at the gala on Saturday night. I slide into the driver's seat, start the engine, and pull away from the curb without looking back. But as I glance into my rearview mirror, I see exactly what I needed to see. Bradley is not walking back into the church to join his perfect new family. He is standing frozen in the middle of the gravel parking lot, a look of absolute dread washing over his face. He quickly pulls his phone from his inside jacket pocket and frantically begins dialing First Sterling Bank. The heavy mahogany clock in my hallway chimes midnight, but sleep is an entirely foreign concept. It is Friday night. The air in my living room is thick with a chilling electric anticipation. I sit cross-legged on my plush velvet sofa, the stark blue light of my laptop screen illuminating the darkened room. This is not just a presentation. It is a digital guillotine, and I am sharpening the blade to an absolute razor edge. My fingers fly across the keyboard as I import the final files into the master sequence. First, I load the raw, unredacted offshore bank logs from Golden Orchid Holdings, highlighting the exact routing numbers that bleed directly from Bradley's primary family trust. Next, I attach the high-resolution scans of the Buckhead Mansion property, deeds perfectly matching the fraudulent withdrawal amounts to the exact penny. Finally, the centerpiece of my collection goes into the queue. I drag and drop the audio recordings of the clinic bribes and the glaringly obvious counterfeit DNA paternity test Jasmine used to secure her unborn child's status in the generational lineage. I meticulously arrange the sequence to unfold with devastating, undeniable logic, leaving absolutely zero room for plausible deniability. I run the simulation 3 times, checking every transition, every damning timestamp, and every forged signature. When the sequence is completely bulletproof, I insert a sleek matte black USB drive into the port. I watch the progress bar fill, transferring the entirety of my parents' generational deception and Marcus's corporate embezzlement onto a single encrypted piece of metal no larger than my thumb. I pull the drive out, feeling the cold weight of it in my palm. This tiny object holds the power to dismantle a decades-old Atlanta dynasty and send my husband to a federal penitentiary. I slip the drive into my evening clutch, snapping the gold clasp shut with a satisfying click. The sharp grinding of a key turning in the front door lock shatters the silence of the house. I do not flinch. I calmly close my laptop and stand up just as Marcus swaggers into the living room. He does not knock. He does not announce himself. He walks through my front door with the supreme, arrogant entitlement of a man who believes he owns the entire world. He is wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, radiating a sickening aura of unearned victory. He stops when he sees me standing by the fireplace, flashing a cruel, mocking smile that makes my stomach turn. He tells me he just dropped by to retrieve his vintage platinum Rolex from the upstairs safe, claiming he needs the perfect accessory for his grand introduction to Atlanta high society tomorrow night. He looks around the living room, his eyes scanning the furniture with blatant greed, mentally calculating the liquidation value of my home. He takes a slow, deliberate step toward me, crossing his arms and leaning back on his heels. He tells me I look exhausted, suggesting with a vicious sneer that the church service last Sunday must have taken a terrible toll on my fragile mental state. He says Vivian is deeply concerned about my sanity and that everyone in their circle is talking about how far I have fallen. Then he delivers his ultimate threat. He casually informs me that his lawyers are filing the final paperwork on Monday morning to force the immediate sale of this house. He claims he has frozen my remaining liquid assets and that I will be legally locked out of the property by the end of the month. He looks me dead in the eye, his voice dripping with condescension, and advises me to spend my weekend packing my bags because my time playing the successful independent woman is officially over. He expects me to scream. He expects me to beg or threaten him with empty words. He is waiting for the hysterical breakdown he has spent weeks convincing the world I am currently having. I do not give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I simply stare at him, feeling a profound, icy calm wash over my entire body. A slow, chilling smile touches the corners of my mouth. I look at this man, this arrogant, thieving parasite who tried to destroy my life, and I feel nothing but absolute pity for his ignorance. You are right, Marcus, I say, my voice steady, smooth, and dangerously soft. Tomorrow changes absolutely everything. I fold my hands neatly in front of me, holding his gaze without a single tremor of fear. You should go get your watch. Make sure you wear your absolute best suit tomorrow night. You are going to want to look perfect for the cameras. Marcus frowns, momentarily thrown off balance by my complete lack of resistance. He scoffs, muttering something under his breath about my delusions, and heads upstairs to raid the safe. 5 minutes later, the front door slams shut, leaving me alone in the echoing silence. I walk slowly upstairs to my bedroom and open my closet. Hanging from the center rack, wrapped in protective plastic, is a stunning floor-length blood-red evening gown. It is aggressive, unapologetic, and completely impossible to ignore. I reach back and slowly zip myself into the silk fabric, feeling it pull tight against my skin like armor. I look at my reflection in the full-length mirror, my eyes hard and entirely devoid of mercy. The trap is primed. The valet pulls open the heavy glass doors of the Ritz-Carlton, and the grand ballroom beyond is a masterclass in opulent intimidation. Dripping crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over a sea of black tuxedos and muted conservative evening gowns. Atlanta's oldest, most vicious money has gathered to celebrate Bradley's newest venture. I do not slink in through the side entrance. I walk straight down the center staircase, my heels clicking a steady, unapologetic rhythm against the imported marble. The blood-red silk of my dress acts as a blaring siren, instantly scorching the retinas of everyone in the room. The effect is immediate. The polite, low hum of classical string music and clinking champagne flutes fractures. Whispers erupt like a sudden localized storm rippling outward from the staircase. Heads turn, eyes widen. I scan the perimeter and immediately lock onto my parents. Jerome is holding a crystal tumbler of scotch, frozen mid-sip. Vivian looks as though she has been physically struck. Her perfectly powdered face drains of color, her eyes widening in absolute visceral horror. They spent the entire week meticulously crafting a narrative of my complete mental collapse, assuring their country club friends that I was safely locked away in some discreet, high-end psychiatric retreat. My presence, standing tall, radiant, and dangerously composed, shatters their carefully constructed illusion in front of their entire social circle. The red dress is not just a fashion choice, it is a declaration of war. I offer my mother a bright, terrifyingly sharp smile and glide right past her, heading straight for the center of the room. At the center of the ballroom, holding court under the largest chandelier, are the stars of the evening. Marcus is wearing a custom Tom Ford tuxedo, laughing loudly at a joke made by a prominent state senator. He is playing the brilliant rising titan of commercial real estate to perfection, soaking up the admiration of his peers. Jasmine is clinging to his arm, draped in heavily beaded silver fabric that deliberately accentuates her supposed pregnancy. She is glowing, accepting early congratulations and batting her eyelashes at Atlanta's elite. Standing a few feet away is Bradley. He is shaking hands and playing the gracious host, but I can see the tight, rigid set of his jaw. He looks completely distracted. His eyes keep darting to his phone, his thumb tapping anxiously against the screen. The seed of doubt I planted in the church parking lot has clearly taken root, and he is frantically waiting for the audit results from his bankers. He does not notice me yet, but Jasmine certainly does. The fake, radiant smile drops from her face the second she catches sight of my red dress. She whispers something harsh into Marcus's ear, detaches herself from his arm, and marches directly toward me. She intercepts me near a towering floral arrangement of white orchids, her eyes flashing with pure, unadulterated venom. She leans in close, keeping her voice low, so the surrounding guests only see two sisters exchanging a private greeting. "What are you doing here?" she hisses, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her expensive clutch. "You have absolutely no right to show your face tonight. We warned you about this." I take a slow sip of the champagne I grabbed from a passing tray, looking her up and down with clinical detachment. "I would not miss your big moment for the world, Jasmine." She scoffs a nasty, condescending sound. "You are pathetic. Did you really think you could just crash this gala and cause a scene? Enjoy the appetizers while you can, Valerie. Marcus already saw you walk in. He signaled the Ritz-Carlton security team 2 minutes ago. They are going to quietly escort your crazy, hysterical self out the service elevator before the first course is even served." I do not blink. I simply lift my right hand and snap my fingers once. The sound cuts sharply through the immediate ambient noise. Out of the shadows of the floral displays, two massive, impeccably dressed men step forward. They do not wear standard hotel security uniforms. They are wearing tailored black suits with discreet earpieces, radiating the kind of lethal, quiet professionalism that only comes with elite private military training. I liquidated the absolute last of my unfrozen retirement funds yesterday afternoon to put them on a premium retainer. They flank me instantly, towering over Jasmine like twin monoliths. Jasmine physically recoils, taking a stumbling step backward as one of my guards fixes her with a cold, dead stare. "Hotel security works for the hotel," I explain, my voice dripping with smooth, venomous authority. "These gentlemen work exclusively for me." And since I am technically listed on the master registry as a VIP family guest of the host Bradley, the hotel management has absolutely zero legal grounds to remove me. Nobody is touching me tonight, Jasmine. Nobody is escorting me out of any service elevators. I am staying for the entire show. Jasmine opens her mouth to argue, her face contorting with panic, but she's abruptly cut off. A heavy rhythmic tapping echoes through the massive ballroom. The enormous crystal chandeliers suddenly dim, casting the room into dramatic, expectant shadows. A sharp spotlight snaps on, illuminating the grand stage at the far end of the hall. It is time for the speeches. The polite applause of 300 of Atlanta's most influential power brokers washes over the ballroom as Bradley steps into the stark white circle of the spotlight. He adjusts the microphone, offering the crowd that signature devastatingly handsome smile that has graced the cover of Forbes magazine twice. He is the picture of corporate grace, though I can see the slight, almost imperceptible tension in his broad shoulders. The seed of doubt I planted in his mind earlier this week is still germinating, but tonight he has a role to play. He begins his speech with a smooth, practiced cadence, thanking the board of directors, the charity sponsors, and the esteemed guests. Then he pivots to the central theme of the evening. He speaks passionately about loyalty, about the vital importance of building a legacy that outlasts mere profit margins and shifting market trends. He tells the captivated audience that the true measure of a man is not the wealth he accumulates, but the family he protects and the trust he cultivates. His gaze sweeps across the front row, landing directly on Marcus. Bradley raises his glass, his voice echoing through the silent room. He publicly praises Marcus, crediting my husband's supposedly brilliant financial stewardship for keeping his family trust completely bulletproof during a remarkably volatile economic year. He tells the crowd how rare it is to find someone you can trust implicitly with your entire generational fortune, someone who treats your assets with the exact same reverence as their own. It is a masterful, heartfelt tribute. It is also completely tragic. Every word of praise Bradley utters is another nail in his own coffin, a public testament to the profound, absolute betrayal he does not yet realize has already occurred right under his nose. The audience erupts into enthusiastic applause, completely mesmerized by the illusion of this perfect, unbreakable brotherhood. Bradley steps back, extending his hand to invite Marcus up to the podium to share the spotlight. Marcus practically glides onto the stage, soaking up the applause like a starving man. He buttons his custom tuxedo jacket with a smug, self-satisfied flourish, gripping the edges of the podium as if he owns the entire building. He leans into the microphone, his voice practically dripping with manufactured charm and false humility. He thanks Bradley, calling him a visionary, a mentor, and the best brother a man could ever ask for. The audience literally sighs at the display of manufactured affection, completely taken in by the flawless performance. Then Marcus expertly shifts the narrative. He lowers his voice to a smooth, intimate register, talking about the profound concept of new beginnings. He speaks about how the landscape of real estate is not just about concrete and steel, but about planting roots for the next generation. He talks about investing in the future, about expanding horizons, and bringing new, vital energy into the fold. He pauses, letting the dramatic silence build, and turns his gaze directly toward our family's reserved table. He looks lovingly at Jasmine. She places a delicate, perfectly manicured hand over her slightly rounded stomach, playing the part of the radiant, supportive matriarch to absolute perfection. Marcus turns back to the crowd, his smile widening into a predatory grin. He announces that tonight is not just a celebration of Bradley's charity, but the dawn of a massive, unprecedented era. He tells the room that he and Jasmine are profoundly honored to announce a miracle business partnership, a multi-million-dollar joint venture that will officially merge their futures with Bradley's empire. He takes a deep breath, preparing to deliver the final crushing blow. He is getting ready to publicly announce Jasmine's pregnancy, tying the unborn heir directly to the stolen capital, effectively locking me into a corner where any objection I make will look like the deranged, jealous rantings of a barren, mentally unstable woman. He intends to use the sheer weight of public opinion to force me into absolute submission. He never gets the chance to utter the words. I step out from the shadows of the floral arrangements and walk straight up the dead center of the ballroom aisle. The stark red of my dress blazes under the ambient lighting, a blazing beacon, slicing through the sea of black and white. Marcus freezes at the podium, his mouth hanging open as the words completely die in his throat. Jerome shoots up from his seat in the front row, his face purple with rage, signaling frantically for the hotel staff to intervene. But my two private security contractors move with terrifying speed. They step seamlessly into the aisle, forming an impenetrable solid wall of muscle between my family and me. Jerome physically bounces off the chest of my lead guard, stumbling backward into the front row with a shocked gasp. Marcus grips the podium, his knuckles turning white, completely powerless to stop my advance. I do not look at them. I bypass the stage entirely and glide straight to the elevated audio-visual booth at the back of the room. The young technician sitting behind the glowing mixing board stares at me with wide, panicked eyes, completely unsure of how to handle the disruption. I do not say a single word. I simply reach into my clutch, pull out a crisp, brand-new $1,000 bill, and lay it flat across his keyboard. He looks at the money, then looks at my unyielding expression, and slowly slides his chair back, lifting his hands in surrender. I pull the encrypted matte black USB drive from my purse and push it directly into the master projection port. The massive LED screens spanning the entire width of the ballroom stage flicker, casting a harsh, sterile blue glow over the podium. The elegant gold-leafed logo of Bradley's charity gala completely vanishes. In its place, projected in razor-sharp 50-foot high definition, is a stark, unredacted corporate bank statement. The sheer scale of the projection makes the raw numbers utterly impossible to ignore. Right in the center of the screen, highlighted in a glaring fluorescent yellow box, is a single outgoing wire transfer, $1.5 million. The originating routing numbers are clearly displayed, bleeding directly from the primary operating account of Bradley's generational family trust. The destination is an offshore holding account, completely disconnected from any approved corporate venture. A collective confused murmur ripples through the audience of 300 elite guests. Champagne flutes freeze halfway to their mouths. Bradley takes a sudden, sharp step forward from the side of the stage, his eyes narrowing as he instantly recognizes the proprietary account structure of his own inherited wealth. At the podium, Marcus turns around. The blood completely drains from his face, leaving his skin a sickly ash gray. He stares up at the towering projection of his own financial treason, his jaw slack, the manufactured charm dissolving into pure, unadulterated panic. He frantically taps the microphone, his polished composure shattering as he gestures wildly toward the back of the room, barking an order for the technicians to cut the feed. But the feed is under my absolute control. The stark white background of the financial ledger illuminates the heavy sweat breaking out on Marcus's forehead. He looks exactly like a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming freight train. The illusion of the brilliant, untouchable financial prodigy is dead, replaced in a matter of seconds by the reality of a cornered, desperate thief exposed before the entire city. I do not rush. I walk up the side stairs of the stage with slow, deliberate precision, the heavy silk of my red dress trailing behind me. My two private security contractors take up positions at the base of the stairs, forming an immovable human barricade between the stage and the rapidly panicking family in the front row. Marcus is too paralyzed by the massive projection of his guilt to even process my approach. He futilely tries to shift his weight to block the screen, a pathetic gesture given the 50-foot display towering over him. I step right up to the podium, reaching out and prying the microphone directly from his cold, clammy fingers. He offers absolutely zero resistance, shrinking back from me as if I am radiating physical heat. I turn to face the sea of shocked, silent faces. "Good evening, Atlanta," I say, my voice ringing out through the state-of-the-art sound system, steady, melodic, and completely commanding. Marcus was just about to talk to you all about his brilliant investments, about new beginnings and planting roots for the next generation. I gesture casually toward the towering bank ledger, dominating the screen behind me. As a forensic accountant, I thought I would provide the visual aids. A collective gasp echoes from the back of the ballroom. I lock eyes with Bradley, who is staring at the screen with a look of dawning, horrified realization. Marcus has been selling you a beautiful story tonight. I continue, my voice dropping to a sharp conversational tone that cuts through the tension like glass. He is a phenomenal storyteller, but the numbers behind me do not deal in metaphors. They deal in absolute facts. What you are looking at is a direct, unauthorized withdrawal of $1.5 million from the primary holding account of the host's family trust executed just 3 days ago. Marcus scrambles forward, his voice a frantic, breathy hiss without the amplification of the microphone. He begs me to stop claiming there is a rational explanation, that the transfer is a bridge loan for the new venture. I ignore him completely, keeping my eyes fixed on the audience. Marcus wants you to believe he is building a legacy, I announce, my words striking like hammer blows across the silent room. But true legacies are not built by quietly siphoning off millions from the people who foolishly trusted you with the keys to their vault. The ballroom explodes into a chaotic symphony of outraged whispers and sharp gasps. In the front row, Vivian finally snaps out of her shocked paralysis. She lunges forward, her face contorted in an ugly, desperate snarl, screaming at the top of her lungs for someone to cut the microphone, to arrest me, to do absolutely anything to stop the bleeding. Jerome tries to follow her, but my security detail effortlessly blocks their path. One of my guards crosses his massive arms, stepping firmly into Vivian's path and staring the frantic couple down with silent, absolute menace. No one is getting past them, and no one is touching the audio-visual booth. I raise the small remote clicker in my right hand, waiting for the room to quiet down just enough for my next strike to land. The crowd watches my hand, completely captivated by the brutal execution unfolding on stage. I press the button. The massive LED screen blinks. The bank ledger disappears, instantly replaced by a series of scanned, legally binding incorporation documents. The header of the document reads, Golden Orchid Holdings, in bold black ink. I point directly at the final page displayed on the screen. Let us take a look at where that $1.5 million actually went, I say, my voice echoing over the mounting chaos. And more importantly, let us look at exactly who authorized the receiving offshore account. The screen magnifies the bottom of the document, bringing a single undeniable signature into sharp, glaring focus. That elegant looping script belongs to your beloved fiancée, Jasmine. I state, my voice projecting across the cavernous ballroom with crystal clarity. The collective gasp from the audience is a physical wave. I do not let the momentum stall for a fraction of a second. I press the clicker again, and a rapid, undeniable cascade of financial records floods the 50-foot screen. Row after row of wire transfers materialize, the dates and amounts highlighted in stark, unforgiving red. You see, Marcus did not simply misplace $1.5 million this week, I explain, stepping away from the podium to pace the width of the stage. This was not a sudden lapse in judgment or a minor accounting error. This is a meticulously structured Ponzi scheme that has been bleeding your family trust dry for 24 consecutive months. I point to the left side of the screen where the outgoing ledger from Bradley's primary operational capital is displayed. Then I gesture to the right, showing the corresponding incoming deposits into Golden Orchid Holdings. The numbers match flawlessly, right down to the exact penny. I walk the audience through the agonizingly clear digital trail. Marcus systematically authorized phantom invoices and fabricated vendor payouts, siphoning the capital out of Bradley's accounts under the guise of aggressive market investments. He then funneled those exact amounts directly into the shell company, completely controlled by Jasmine. The grand total of this systemic embezzlement sits at exactly $3.2 million. The quarterly executive summaries Marcus handed you were not financial reports, Bradley. They were beautifully bound fairy tales designed to mask a massive ongoing theft. The ballroom is suffocatingly silent, the air pulled entirely from the room. I press the button on the remote one more time. The complex columns of numbers instantly vanish. In their place, a high-resolution scan of a real estate deed illuminates the stage. Accompanying the legal document is a vibrant aerial photograph of a sprawling, heavily gated estate. The purchase price is stamped across the bottom of the screen in bold, undeniable lettering, $3.2 million. Paid entirely in cash. I looked directly down at Bradley, meeting his horrified gaze with absolute unyielding calm. "They didn't invest your money, Bradley," I say, letting the words hang heavily in the tense air. "They bought a luxury love nest right in the heart of Buckhead." The property deed clearly displays both Marcus and Jasmine listed as the sole co-owners. The dates of the final massive wire transfers from your trust perfectly align with the closing date of this real estate transaction. The grand, miraculous business partnership Marcus was about to announce tonight was never about securing your legacy. It was a desperate, calculated maneuver to legitimize $3 million of stolen funds and fold their embezzled assets back into your family portfolio under the guise of an equity merger. They were going to make you legally underwrite your own robbery. Bradley stands absolutely frozen in the front row. The initial visceral shock slowly drains from his features, instantly replaced by a terrifying, lethal calm. He does not yell or throw his champagne glass. His jaw locks, the muscles ticking furiously beneath his skin. He slowly turns his head to look at Jasmine. She is visibly shaking her face, devoid of all color. She clutches her beaded silver dress instinctively, taking a frantic, trembling step backward, trying to put distance between herself and the man she intended to con. The illusion of their perfect, loyal alliance is completely incinerated. Marcus finally snaps. The paralysis of his exposure breaks, giving way to an explosive, desperate panic. He screams that it is a lie, a fabricated psychotic setup orchestrated by a jealous, hysterical ex-wife. He lunges toward the stage, his face contorted in an ugly mask of rage, desperate to tear the microphone from my hands and manually pull the plug on the projector. My security contractors immediately step forward, their hands lowering to their belts, ready to intercept him with extreme prejudice. But I do not retreat. I stand my ground at the edge of the stage, and as Marcus charges forward, I reach into my evening clutch and raise my left hand high above my head. Pinched tightly between my fingers is a crisp, physical piece of medical paper. I let the stark white sheet of paper catch the harsh light of the stage. The entire ballroom holds its collective breath, eyes fixed on this single fragile document. I press the remote clicker one final time. The 50-foot screen behind me flashes, replacing the Buckhead Mansion deed with a high-resolution scan of the exact document I am holding. It is a prenatal DNA paternity test. The insignia of a highly prestigious, exceptionally expensive Atlanta fertility clinic sits proudly at the top. I look directly at Bradley. His eyes dart from the physical paper in my hand to the massive projection dominating the room. I watch the realization hit him, a sickening wave of comprehension that leaves him absolutely rigid. "Marcus knew you might check the books eventually, Bradley." I say, my voice steady and echoing with undeniable authority. He knew that even with Jasmine running the shell company, a missing $3 million would eventually raise a red flag during a standard quarterly audit. So they created an ultimate insurance policy. They manufactured a distraction so emotionally overwhelming, so deeply personal, that you would never think to question their loyalty again. A baby. I gesture toward the massive screen. A perfectly timed, miraculous heir to the family empire. Jasmine plays her part flawlessly. She lets out a theatrical, trembling sob, clutching her stomach and collapsing against the edge of the reserved table, as if the sheer stress of my accusation is physically breaking her. She looks up at Bradley with wide, tear-filled eyes, silently pleading for him to defend her, to defend their unborn child. But Bradley does not move. He is staring at the screen, reading the projected results that declare him the biological father with absolute certainty. It is a beautiful, flawless lie. I lower the paper and turn my gaze away from Bradley, sweeping my eyes across the sea of shocked faces in the audience. Jasmine is indeed pregnant, I announce, projecting my voice to reach the very back of the ballroom. She is carrying the next generation of this supposed family legacy. But the document on the screen behind me is a complete fabrication. It is a high-grade forgery purchased on the black market for $50,000, paid for, ironically, with Bradley's own stolen funds. I tap the podium, the sharp sound cutting through the thick tension. I have the actual unadulterated medical records from a private clinic in Buckhead. The real clinic. The one located less than 2 miles from the luxury love nest you two bought with embezzled cash. I look down at Marcus, who is now gripping his hair, his perfect tuxedo, completely disheveled, his breathing shallow and erratic. He looks exactly like a man watching the trapdoor open beneath his feet. The baby does not belong to Bradley, I state, dropping the words like an anvil. The baby belongs to Marcus. The ballroom erupts into absolute unbridled chaos. The polite, hushed murmurs of the elite crowd instantly shatter into a deafening roar of gasps, shrieks, and furious shouting. 300 of Atlanta's most influential power brokers lose all semblance of high society decorum. Chairs scrape violently against the polished marble floor as guests shoot to their feet. Camera phones flash incessantly, a strobe light effect of digital documentation capturing every agonizing second of my family's total destruction. People are actively live streaming the collapse of the city's golden boy. The air is thick with the sound of rapid-fire gossip and utter disbelief. Jasmine lets out a genuine, piercing scream this time, covering her face as the relentless flash of cameras blinds her. Marcus tries to run. He spins around desperately, scanning the room for an exit. But the crowd has already turned on him, tightening the circle, blocking the aisles with their sheer outraged mass. He is trapped in a cage of his own making, exposed as a thief and a traitor in front of the entire city. In the front row, the final pillar of my family's carefully manufactured facade collapses. Vivian stares at the screen, her mouth opening and closing wordlessly as the reality of my absolute victory sinks in. The favorite son is a criminal. The golden daughter-in-law is a fraud. The entire social empire she built on my subjugation is burning to the ground. She clutches her chest, her face draining of all blood, and dramatically faints backward into Jerome's arms. Jerome staggers under her dead weight, lowering her to the carpeted floor. He does not even try to revive her. He kneels there in his ruined tuxedo, staring blankly at the stage. I can see the exact moment his spirit breaks. He is looking at his ruined social standing, his completely exposed, disgraced family, and the terrifying reality of his failed, bankrupt business ventures that Marcus can no longer illegally fund. They have absolutely nothing left. I look down at the wreckage of the people who spent a lifetime trying to make me feel small. I am no longer the scapegoat. I am the architect of their ruin. Before anyone can attempt to restore order to the panicked ballroom, a new sound pierces through the heavy velvet curtains of the hotel. It starts as a faint wail cutting through the crisp night air and rapidly grows louder. Sirens, multiple sirens shrieking in unison, tearing down the street and rapidly approaching the hotel. The wailing of the sirens grows deafening, bouncing off the towering glass windows of the luxury hotel before the heavy, ornate oak doors of the grand ballroom are violently shoved open. A dozen federal agents in dark tactical windbreakers bearing the bright yellow letters of the FBI and the SEC flood into the space. The chaotic, screaming crowd instantly parts, scrambling backward in a frantic wave to clear a path as the armed agents move with terrifying practiced efficiency. They do not hesitate to ask questions or survey the room. They march straight down the center aisle, their eyes locked intensely on the stage. Marcus barely has time to process the reality of the raid before two agents vault onto the stage. He tries to spin away a pathetic, desperate instinct to flee the inevitable, but a heavy hand grabs the back collar of his custom-tailored tuxedo jacket. With a brutal, fluid motion, the lead agent slams Marcus face first into the polished wooden floor of the stage. The sickening thud of impact echoes through the microphone before an agent kicks the metal stand aside. The sharp metallic click of handcuffs snapping around Marcus's wrists sounds like a gunshot in the suddenly terrified, breathless silence of the room. I look across the stage at Bradley. He is not shocked by the dramatic arrival of federal law enforcement. He stands perfectly still at the edge of the stage, adjusting his expensive cufflinks with lethal, terrifying calm. He meets my gaze and gives a single subtle nod of profound acknowledgement. The seed of financial doubt I planted in his mind days ago did not just germinate. It triggered an absolute avalanche. Bradley is not a man who inherits and controls billions by being naive or overly trusting. The moment I warned him about the structural anomalies in his accounts, he had quietly initiated a brutal top-down forensic audit of his own books. He had found the bleeding capital. He had called the authorities himself. All he had been waiting for tonight was the final undeniable proof, connecting the stolen money directly to Marcus and Jasmine, the smoking gun that I just projected onto a 50-foot screen. Marcus, his cheek pressed flush against the cold floorboards, stares up at Bradley in total shattered disbelief, finally realizing that his supposed brother and best friend had been actively hunting him all week. The sight of Marcus being roughly hauled to his feet, his arms pinned securely behind his back by federal agents, absolutely destroys whatever is left of Jasmine's manufactured composure. The luxurious, untouchable empire she thought she had successfully stolen crumbles into dust before her very eyes. She realizes with horrifying clarity that the millions are frozen, the social prestige is gone, and the wealthy heir she planned to permanently trap with a fraudulent pregnancy is now staring at her with cold, unadulterated disgust. Total panic consumes her entirely. She drops heavily to her knees, the expensive silk of her designer gown pooling uselessly around her on the carpet. She practically crawls the short distance to Bradley, her perfectly manicured hands desperately grabbing at the fabric of his tailored tuxedo pants. Tears streak through her flawless camera-ready makeup, turning her beautiful face into a messy, desperate mask of sheer terror. Bradley. Please, she sobs, her voice a hysterical broken shriek that carries effortlessly across the silent ballroom. Please, I love you. It was a terrible mistake. He manipulated me. He forced me to sign those papers and open those accounts. You have to believe me. Bradley does not flinch. He looks down at her grasping hands with the detached, clinical revulsion one might reserve for a poisonous insect crawling on his shoe. He takes a sharp, deliberate step backward, physically tearing his fabric from her desperate grip. He reaches down and slowly, meticulously brushes his pants where her fingers just touched him. You are pathetic, Jasmine. Bradley says, his voice eerily quiet but cutting through the room with absolute surgical precision. My lawyers will contact you in the morning. The infidelity clause in our prenup leaves you with absolutely nothing. You can take your designer bags, your fake paternity test, and the father of your child and get the hell out of my sight. Jasmine collapses entirely, curling into a sobbing, hyperventilating ball on the floor, fully realizing she is about to be penniless pregnant and facing inevitable federal accessory charges. I turn my back on the pathetic scene, my pulse steady and my breathing perfectly calm. I reach over to the master projection port on the audio-visual mixing board and smoothly pull the matte black USB drive from the glowing slot. The massive screens behind the stage instantly go dark, plunging the front of the room back into ambient, moody shadow. I slip the drive back into my clutch, secure the clasp, and walk down the side stairs of the stage. The crowd of Atlanta elites parts for me in absolute stunned silence, creating a wide, unobstructed path down the center aisle of the ballroom. I glide past the front row without breaking my stride for even a fraction of a second. I walk right past my mother, who is still sprawled awkwardly on the floor, hyperventilating into her hands, while my father stares blankly at the wall, a thoroughly broken and ruined man. I walk past Marcus, who is being forcefully marched out of the ballroom by two grim-faced federal agents, his Miranda rights being read to him in a dull, bureaucratic monotone. I do not sneer at them. I do not offer a sharp, parting insult. I do not gloat over my victory. They are simply no longer worth my breath or my energy. I push through the heavy brass doors of the ballroom, cross the sprawling marble lobby without looking back, and step out the front doors of the hotel into the crisp, cool Atlanta night air. The sheer intoxicating rush of absolute freedom fills my lungs. 1 year later. The federal penitentiary on the outskirts of Atlanta is a far cry from the velvet-lined ballrooms and bespoke tuxedos Marcus once considered his absolute birthright. He is currently serving a mandatory 10-year sentence in federal prison, permanently stripped of his title, his manufactured dignity, and his freedom. The federal prosecutors did not offer a plea deal. The charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and grand larceny stuck with brutal permanence. He now spends his days assigned to the prison laundry facility, earning mere pennies an hour. A deeply poetic downfall for a man who believed he was intelligent enough to effortlessly steal millions. Jasmine did not fare any better. The luxurious Buckhead mansion was seized by federal authorities before she even had a chance to pack her stolen designer bags. Atlanta high society, a circle that demands absolute perfection and ruthlessly punishes public scandal immediately and permanently, slammed its doors in her face. The women who used to air-kiss her cheeks at charity luncheons now cross the street to avoid making eye contact. She currently lives in a cramped, poorly ventilated apartment on the industrial edge of the city, relying entirely on government food assistance to feed her son. The glamorous, effortless life she tried to steal from me completely dissolved into the harsh, grinding reality of poverty. As for Vivian and Jerome, the architects of my lifetime of misery, their precious social empire entirely imploded. Bradley's family trust did not just send Marcus to prison. Their legal team filed a massive, aggressive civil suit against my parents for their complicity in the embezzlement scheme, ruthlessly seeking damages for the resources they helped hide. The legal fees alone bled my parents completely dry. Their sprawling estate went into foreclosure within 6 months. The ultimate, crushing blow came when their prestigious church and their beloved elite social clubs formally revoked their memberships. Stripped of their wealth, their home, and their carefully curated public image, they were left with absolutely nothing but the suffocating weight of their own disgrace. I sit comfortably behind a massive polished mahogany desk, the morning sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of my corner office. The view of the Atlanta skyline is breathtaking, a sprawling expanse of steel and glass that I now look down upon from the 50th floor. Resting perfectly centered on the pristine surface of my desk is a solid crystal nameplate. It reads Valerie Woods, Chief Director of Independent Audit. Bradley did not just thank me for saving his generational wealth. He recognized a profound, invaluable asset when he saw one. The morning after the charity gala, his family's board of directors voted unanimously to create a brand new, highly specialized executive position entirely for me. They handed me complete, unrestricted oversight of their entire global financial portfolio, ensuring that no one would ever be able to exploit a single cent of their capital again. The compensation package they offered was staggering, a guaranteed 7-figure base salary complete with executive stock options and a level of corporate authority that Marcus had spent his entire pathetic life desperately craving but never possessed the intellect to actually earn. I am no longer the quiet, overlooked woman standing in the shadows of a narcissistic thief and a toxic family. I am the absolute authority in this building. When I walk into a boardroom, executives instantly stop talking and listen. When I flag an irregular transaction, entire corporate departments scramble to provide me with answers. I have built an ironclad reputation in the financial sector, widely known as the brilliant auditor who single-handedly dismantled a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme without breaking a sweat. I am thriving, fiercely secure, and profoundly independent. The soft, unobtrusive chime of my personal cell phone breaks the quiet hum of my office. I glance down at the glowing screen. A new email notification sits at the top of my inbox. The sender address belongs to Jasmine. I open the message, my expression remaining completely neutral. The text is brief, frantic, and dripping with exactly the kind of pathetic manipulation my family used to control me for decades. Valerie, Mom is sick. We have no money for her treatments. Please. You are the only family we have left. We need your help. I stare at the words for a long moment. There is no sudden spike of anger in my chest, no lingering guilt pulling at my conscience, no tearful urge to rush to their rescue. I feel absolutely nothing for them. A slow, deeply satisfied smile touches the corners of my mouth. I move my thumb across the screen, deliberately click delete, and permanently block the email address. I place the phone face down on my desk, turn my leather executive chair around, and look out over the beautiful, sunlit Atlanta skyline. I built my own magnificent empire directly from the ashes of their betrayal. The sweetest revenge was never just about destroying them. It was about stepping into my absolute power and letting them watch me shine brilliantly from afar, while they drowned in the very darkness they created. The most profound lesson from this narrative is that true vindication never comes from seeking validation from toxic individuals. For years, the protagonist endured systemic manipulation and cruelty from a family that weaponized their status. However, she triumphed not by engaging in their petty drama, but through quiet, calculated competence. By maintaining her integrity, establishing ironclad boundaries, and letting undeniable facts speak for themselves, she completely dismantled their manufactured facade. The ultimate justice is simply thriving independently. When you stop playing by a manipulative family's rules, you free yourself to build your own empire from the ashes of their betrayal.